Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship, New Jersey Museum and Memorial. I get asked all the time why we shoot some guns and not others. And what we shoot out of the guns. Do we shoot projectiles? How much powder do we shoot? And the answer to all of these questions really comes back to overpressure. So today's video, we're going to answer those questions and talk about overpressure and the damage that can do to windows. First, let's talk about the guns we shoot. We've got a Bofors 40mm gun that we fire. That would normally have a 2-pound projectile. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head how much powder. However, we just put a reduced charge in it nowadays, and we use the manual firing lever to drop the firing pin. We don't use the actual foot pedal. We have a 40mm saluting gun, which is something that's still used on Navy ships today, which is just supposed to be a powder charge. And we also use a reduced charge in that, maybe a 1/4 pound, maybe a 1/2 pound, depending on the charge. A 1/4 pound is about the size of a normal firework. From a small gun like that, firing that much powder makes a substantial boom. On an overcast day like today, it reverberates off the clouds really well.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
We also can fire some of our 5-inch guns.
Fire!
They were designed for a 15-pound powder charge, although we use less than 2 pounds today.
I think it fired.
I've been told that when we first reactivated one of those, we reactivated one on the Camden side of the ship and fired it with a 5-pound powder charge. I'm also told that the result of that was breaking glass in our visitor center. That is the result of an overpressure wave. Again, sound wave comes out, and so does a shock wave. We do not fire the 55-pound projectiles from the 5-inch guns. We don't fire any projectiles from any of our guns anymore. But you still have this fireball coming out and this shock wave emitted, which can do damage to glass. You'll notice that war-built ships like New Jersey have precious little glass on board. The hull has absolutely 0 portholes. The superstructure has a couple of portholes, mostly in officer staterooms, but they are all round. So they are structurally a little bit stronger, and it's quite thick glass. And each one has an armored plate that can close over it to either darken ship or form part of the ship's armor. And that protects those from the overpressure blast. They're tough enough to take it. As built, the ship didn't really have bridge windows. The bridge was open. However, by the end of World War II, the large square windows like you see behind me were installed on the ship's bridge. These windows are large enough. They're square, so they're less strong compared to circular openings, and they're thinner, so overpressure from firing the guns can and does damage these windows. So if we were firing a full service charge, we would have to crank down each of these windows. Whenever we were going to fire the guns, especially the main guns, all of the windows in here would be open to protect them. They don't have armored covers. That will keep them from shattering. The 16-inch guns fire 660 pounds of powder. And so that is a significant overpressure blast. In fact, they were normally only fired over the broadside, so that the gun barrels were overboard of the ship. However, oftentimes as part of training during shakedown cruises, and occasionally in emergency situations in wartime, you could fire the guns over the ship's own deck. That results in damage. For example, during the Vietnam Commission, during the shakedown cruise, they tried to do what I would call an over-the-shoulder shoot. So they turned the guns to their maximum so that they were right up against the side of the superstructure and fired. Some of the workers who were getting the ship ready stored their toolboxes in an empty 40mm gun tub. And that explosion damaged the gun tub and sent all those toolboxes flying. A similar shot damaged the film projector compartment aft of turret 3. And that's the one place on the ship where you can still see the dent in the bulkhead and the shattered frame on the inside. The most famous instance of this would be during the Korean War. The day after we got in Korean waters, a North Korean shore battery fired some shots, one of which hit turret 1. The battleship was at anchor, so she immediately turned her guns to return fire, which led to turret 3 having to fire pressed up against the superstructure. And that did more damage to the ship than she actually received from the incoming 155mm shells. The overpressure from the blast damaged one of the gun tubs and blew a life net out of its basket that was mounted inside the superstructure. This overpressure blast also displaces water. So you often see large ripples in the water traveling down the side of the ship when the guns are fired broadside. This is just the explosion displacing the water. It is not the shot moving the ship in the water. So another common myth is that you cannot be on deck when the guns are fired. We see this in the documentary Under Siege, in which Tommy Lee Jones is literally blown insane when Missoura's guns fire while he's out on the main deck. And that, unfortunately, is just Hollywood. If the guns were firing over the deck, you probably wouldn't want to be there. However, the ship was designed with exposed anti-aircraft guns on the main deck that would be manned at the same time as these guns being fired. And we have a number of pictures from Tiger cruises and publicity shoots and whatnot of the guns being fired broadside with folks standing on the forecastle taking pictures of it. So you can feel the shockwave from the guns being fired in your chest, but it isn't going to blow you over the side of the ship. There is a red line painted in the deck just a little bit beyond the length of the gun barrels, and that shows you how far back you have to safely stand if the guns are being fired. So the other question we get is, can we fire the 16-inch guns again? Now obviously we've reactivated 5-inch guns. That's the next biggest thing on the ship, and we could theoretically jury-rig some system to fire the 16-inch guns, to figure out how to get them to the right elevation, put something in there, close the breech, and fire it. But we couldn't fire more than a couple pounds of powder. More than that, when we break windows in our visitor center, if we tried to fire 660 pounds of powder off here on the Delaware River, we're going to break every pane of glass in the city of Philadelphia. We do try to be relatively good neighbors. So if we fire the 5 pounds that we might be able to reasonably fire without threatening the windows around us, that is going to be a little pop coming out of these guns. It's not going to be a spectacular 660-pound explosion. So it's only going to look bad for the ship. So if you have any other questions about how we fire our guns, what we fire out of them, and anything like that, let us know in the comment section down below. Maybe you've got some material that's worth covering in a future video. We do allow guests to fire the guns. There's a link in the description for where you can sign up for a chance to do that. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, and also from a number of businesses and private individuals like yourselves. In particular, the donations from viewers that we've received in the last year have been huge in allowing our channel to expand and allowing us to continue to make great content. There's a link in the description for ways you can continue to support us. And remember to like, share, and subscribe so that you're notified when we put out new content. The support you've given us in the last year has allowed us to go from making one video a week to multiple. So make sure you get notified when that happens. Thanks for watching.